Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Well, it's Monday and I wanted to talk about a book that I read starting on Friday of last week and moving through the weekend and into a little bit of today. And that was Robert Penn Warren's 1946 classic, All the King's Men. This book was quite the reading experience, and I was able to film some clips of me reacting to it as I read it. I tried that out for the first time in my last video on the agony and the ecstasy, and people seemed to like it. And I certainly liked doing it. So I thought I'd try it again for this video and for reading All the King's Men. But I wasn't able to get many clips for a couple of reasons. One is the fact that I kind of flew through the book, so I didn't spend a long time reading it, and so I didn't collect a lot of footage of me doing it over a series of weeks or something like that. But also because the book is emotionally trying. Like, it was emotionally draining for me, and I just couldn't bring myself to get on camera sometimes and talk about it. So there aren't a ton of clips, but I will be playing those in a little bit, and that way you can see my reaction to it, and then obviously I'll cut back to kind of a debrief now that the book is over. But I just had to say before I run those clips, I was not expecting this book to be the way that it was at all. As I've mentioned, it is emotionally harrowing, and I wasn't expecting that. I don't know why, but for some reason I thought that it was going to be some lighthearted political satire. Again, I have no idea where that idea came from. So if that's what you were expecting for some reason, it isn't at all. And so that made my reading experience of this quite unique. I've never really been in a position where I've read a book that was so counter to what I was expecting it to be. Because not only was it not lighthearted political satire, it is easily one of the darkest things I've ever read. Now, that term, oh, this is the darkest book I've ever read, gets thrown around a lot on the internet because I think it's pretty, it's pretty attention-grabbing or whatever, but what made this book dark isn't the fact that there was, I don't know, gratuitous violence in it or something like that. It was because it is connected to a kind of misanthropy, a little bit of nihilism that is extremely, extremely realistic. You are thrust into a world that is based on a real person and the real politics of the United States, whether it be 1946 or before that, or certainly after that. You're thrust in this political world where people are defined by their greed, by their corruption, by their lust for power, and none of that is fantastic or fantastical. That's just the world that Robert Penn Warren lived in. That's the world that we live in. And so because of that, seeing this reality reflected is very, very scary at times. And I wasn't expecting it to be that way. But as you'll see in the clips that I'll show, there is a moment in the book that took me completely by surprise. A moment of, in my opinion, very genuine feeling and sincere and quite tender and beautiful love. So I'll play my reaction to all of that, and then we'll meet back and discuss. Okay, I just got done reading chapter 1 of All the King's Men. Oh my goodness. What a chapter. Wow. Okay, this is a book. You know what I mean? When sometimes you're reading something, you're like, man, this is a book. This is a book. Oh my gosh. I don't think I've ever read anything like it. I don't even know what to do with it or where to place it. I don't even love it yet. I'm just impressed. I'm just impressed at what I read so much. I mean, it's not at all what I was expecting. I thought it was going to be much more comedic than it was, and there is a comedic aspect to it, but it's much darker and more cynical than I thought it was going to be. The whole thing, it has this melancholic, almost just misanthropic tone that I just wasn't expecting. I mean, I don't know if it's going to stay that way or if that's going to be the way that the book finishes, but so far it is just way heavier than I thought it was going to be, and way more, there's actual real tension in that first chapter. I mean, it's a long chapter. It's 60 pages, so it was a commitment. And by the way, I'm reading it out of this Horrorcore Brace. This is deceptively small. This is 500 pages, which, is nothing to sneeze at to begin with, but these are very, very dense pages. Dense in a literary sense too, because there's a lot of names and there's a lot of things going on, and you just get thrown right in. Nothing really gets explained to you. You don't really know who the main character is. It's written in the first person perspective. I hardly know who this guy is after the first chapter. So things are slowly getting unraveled in terms of who he is, who he knows, what his background is, but still there's so many question marks about who this guy is and all the other people in the novel as well. So it's dense in that sense, but there's also just a lot of words on every page. So it's going to take more effort than I thought to read, but I'm definitely going to give it that effort because that was really good. Like, that was really something else. Good. Yeah, there we go. Okay, I wanted to give a quick update on All the King's Men. I've got the camera set up on top of a pile of books and leaning against my bed, so it's a little bit strange. Sorry if that angle is a little off, but I just wanted to give an update because I wasn't able to give an update yesterday. I started reading this on Friday. I read it all of yesterday on Saturday, and now it's Sunday. Sorry if I look a little worse for wear. I got hardly any sleep last night on account of the book, which is a good problem to have. Even though I don't feel particularly great right now, I had to get up early on top of everything else. But staying up till 3 in the morning reading a book is that you love is not exactly the worst way to spend your time. So even though I'm suffering from it now, I think it was worth it. But I wasn't able to film an update yesterday because basically I was an emotional wreck. I was an emotional wreck because of the book, and that's a good thing when that happens. But it's very rare for me. I don't know how often that happens to you. I can't remember the last time that a book made me an emotional wreck the way that what I read last night made me an emotional wreck. So sorry if I look a little worse for wear, but that's the reason. I was not expecting All the King's Men to be this. I think I said that in my first update, and then if I had only known how little I expected All the King's Men to be the way that it is. Oh my God! The last time that a book made me cry as hard as a book made me cry last night was Anna Karenina, and I feel like this even gave Anna Karenina a run for its money. This might just be the most, and part of that is because of where I am in my life. I mean, that's obvious. I mean, that's always going to happen. So, part of me is really hesitant to even bring up this, not only because it's cringe, but also because, part of the experience that I had with it was that it came out of the blue. I had no idea that I was going to get as emotionally walloped as I was emotionally walloped last night. And so that's part of what made it so amazing and powerful, was just because it literally came out of nowhere. So I'm ruining that by saying that that's my experience. This is what happened to me. But I think hopefully that's offset by the fact that in talking about the book and talking about my experience of the book, I might convince somebody to read it who wouldn't normally read it. I mean, I know that I at least got one comment on one of my other videos where somebody was saying, I've had All the King's Men on my TBR for a really long time and I've never read it, so I'm looking for some motivation. Well, I mean, if I can provide that by just saying that it emotionally destroyed me, well, I guess all's well. But I don't read books for that reason. I don't read books trying to find something that will, destroy me at all. And if I did, I would never like books, because that never happens. I mean, on this channel, I talk, I'll talk about whatever book I read, and so you can go back and look. I mean, I read books on geology. I mean, those aren't gonna bring out the waterworks, and I really enjoy them. I enjoy natural history and all sorts of things that are really dry and academic sometimes, but
But this book is just, oh my gosh. And I'm ranting and railing, and I'm sorry about that. But basically, the impetus for the waterworks and everything was because the main character, Jack Burton, describes or relates the story of him falling in love for the first time. And this story, which I had to stop reading because I couldn't see the page because I had so much liquid in my eyes, is so unbelievably moving that, you know, at least I couldn't help but think about my own life as this story is unfolding. And it captures that feeling of falling in love for the first time so perfectly. And you know where the story is going to end up, and you know what's going to happen. And so the beauty of the story, but the terror of where it's going, is so profound for me that I couldn't handle it. Now, obviously, you know, that just relates to like my own biography and like things that have happened to me recently. So you might not be in the same position. But it captures the beauty and the terror of falling in love for the first time so perfectly that the only thing that it's ever come close for me is Anna Karenina. And you know, I didn't expect that. I didn't expect that. I couldn't believe it. Like the scene, the moment, the chapter of him falling in love for the first time is a moment in the book that is a literal diamond in the rough, because the book is mired in basically the folly of humanity. I mean, it is just mired in our own sort of selfishness and greed and lust for power and all of this stuff, and it's very in tune with all of those negative aspects of what it means to be a person and what it means to be alive and what it means to live in a world that are filled with people that are doing these things and ripping people off and scamming people and, you know, all of this stuff. And we know that story. We live in that world. That's what makes it, you know, so electrifying to read, because it's there, and it's there in spades, and it's a world that you recognize and you know because you live it. But then that's not the only thing that you live, you know. Hopefully you've had the experience of falling in love for the first time, and then all of a sudden you're reliving that experience. And then that for me was too much to handle. Like the contrast between the two, the yin and yang of that human experience was too much. Couldn't handle it. Now, I thought about reading out a bunch of passages and everything like that. Maybe I will, but I don't want to. I don't want to cry on camera. You know what I mean? Like, that's cringe. Like, I don't want to do that. I just want to tell you that that's what happened, because that is what happened. That's why I didn't do an update yesterday. And I'm gonna keep reading. And you know, maybe when I'm doing a debrief at the end, I'll kind of read out some of the things that made that beautiful. Well, actually, here, let me just read the one, because this is the one before I realized that this was going to be like the most terrifyingly beautiful thing I'd ever read. There was this, which led into it, and this was like just awesome, and I was like, oh my gosh. But he goes, that was how the Knights became Anne Stanton too. For that night in the Roadster, Anne Stanton had done her trick very well. It was a wordless and handless trick, but it didn't need words or hands. She had rolled her head on the leather seat back and touched her finger to her lips to say shh, and smiled, and had sunk her harpoon deeper than ever Queequeg sunk it, through 4 feet of blubber to the very quick. But I hadn't really known it until the line played out and the barb jerked in the red meat, which was the me inside of all the blubber of what I had thought I was and might continue to think I was. And I was like, oh my gosh, a Moby Dick reference too? Like, good Lord. Like, this is so cool. I was there for it. And then it kept going, and I was like, okay, you know, I can handle it. Don't worry. It's just one tear. It's fine. You're tearing up. It's okay. And then I was like, And then I was like, man, Mr. Warren, you got to lay off on me a little bit. This is a little bit too much. And then it was just like gone. Full, like lungs exhaling, like sharp breathing back in, like couldn't read. Okay, it's the next morning. And this is you're seeing some rare footage of BookTube's hedgehog outside of his little den. I'm sitting here on my couch in the living room. So, but sometimes I read here in the mornings. It's nice because I have a little balcony over there. But yeah, the book is killing me. The book is absolutely killing me. Last night was I went a particularly grueling session. This morning I've been reading another grueling section, and I'm going to finish it. I've got one chapter left, so here we go. Bearing down on that last chapter, I have to suspend judgment even still because things twist and turn so much in the novel that I can't quite be certain of anything until I've turned the last page, and maybe once I've reread the novel like 6 times. But I, as of right now, hate Anne Stanton, and you won't know who that is if you haven't read the book, but I've been trying desperately to not hate her, and I do. At first, I thought she was, I thought of her as like an Anna Karenina type character, and I love Anna Karenina, both the, the book and the character, but she's much more of a Madame Bovary than she is an Anna Karenina, and the book itself, All the King's Men, is very much more like Madame Bovary than it is Anna Karenina. I mean, it has that sort of cynicism, it has that sort of misanthropy, whatever you want to call it, that Flaubert has. And in a certain sense, I mean, I feel like this might even be like a 20th century American Madame Bovary. I mean, I don't want to push the literary illusions too hard here, but yeah, I mean, I mentioned in a previous update about that description of two characters falling in love, and I mean the ultimate apex example that comes to my mind of that being done perfectly and super well is Kitty and Levin from Anna Karenina. So that's where my mind went to right away. But now I'm firmly of the opinion that this is much more of a Flaubert kind of thing, where it's like, it's just so twisted and wrong, and I just wish I feel like I'm doing her a disservice by disliking her as much as I do, but I do hate Anne Stanton, and again, I wish I didn't, but I can't sanction the decisions that she makes, and then she's sort of like looking at the mess that she is at least indirectly responsible for, and then like she's like, I didn't do anything wrong though, right? And you're like, yeah, you did. Like, yeah, you did. Like, I want to be on your side. But you fucked up. Like, you fucked up really big. Like, I don't want to judge you. I mean, I've judged people in this book, and then all of a sudden there's like, in the next chapter you find out something different about them, and you're like, oh shit, that changes things. But we're one chapter away from the end, and there has not been a suitable explanation to explain away the decisions that she made in this book. So Anyway, just something to keep in mind if you decide to pick it up, and make sure you have make sure you're in a rock solid place when you decide to pick this book up, because this book will shake you to your core. So anyway, we're one chapter away from the end. I'm gonna finish that up now. I'm gonna make my video about it. It has been a roller coaster of emotions. And I've loved it and hated it in equal measure, and that's how you know the book is good. So that'll be the last update for now.
Okay, so that was my reaction to All the King's Men. And I still don't like Anne Stanton. I gotta say, I read that last chapter, and she redeemed herself a little bit for me, but I still don't like Anne Stanton. I can't help it. This is a book that I'm assuredly going to live with. It's not a book that I want to reread right now. I want to read P.G. Wodehouse right now. I want to read something light and fluffy and heartwarming. I don't want to read another depressing novel. But she did redeem herself a little bit, and I will have to reread the novel again to kind of fully assimilate and fully flesh out my feelings for her and other characters in the books and in the book and the decisions that they made. And I think that's remarkable. You always know, I think, at least you always find out at some point that you've read a book that you're going to live with for a long time when you start thinking back over it and going like, gosh, did that person really make a bad decision there, or were they justified, or anything like that, or you just end up thinking about it over and over and over again, and I know that that's going to be the case for this book. Again, I'm not looking forward to rereading it anytime soon, but I will be doing that, and when I do, I'm sure that my opinions on some of the characters will change, on some of the decisions that they make will change and whatnot. But it's funny because one of my favorite books of all time, really just a truly amazing book, is Virginia Woolf's To the Lighthouse. I absolutely love that book. I've always loved that book. And I have an edition of it that has an introduction by Eudora Welty, which was really good. And she says in that introduction that a great work of literature is always in front of you. It's always ahead of you. You never tire of it because it's always a couple steps in front of you. And I really do feel like this book is that. I mean, I wouldn't hesitate to call it a masterpiece. I mean, a classic. Well, it came out in 1946. Is that enough time to tell? I mean, I think so. I mean, certainly I think it would be possible to call this an American classic. And I mentioned that it reminded me a lot of Flaubert, actually, kind of like a 20th century American version of Madame Bovary or something like that, because it has that kind of ironic tone, that cynicism to it, but there is a dimension of like Anna Karenina folded in. There is a dimension of like love poking through that I thought was so interesting and engaging. I will say, just as a very specific point that I want to make, I personally, unambiguously, had a lot of fun before the whole book fell on top of me, so to speak, with the first two chapters. And I would highly recommend the first two chapters to really anyone, just to kind of dip your toes in. Now, the book is composed of only 10 chapters, and the book is 500 pages long. So these are pretty long chapters. So the first two chapters of this book do represent somewhat of a time commitment. But man, do they go well together. Holy smokes. I mean, you get to see Willie Stark, the towering figure that this book is at least ostensibly about. And you get to see two portraits of him painted. In the first chapter, you see who he is right now. And in the second chapter, you see who he was and what made him who he is. And it's fascinating. It is absolutely fascinating. And like I said in that first clip, I was white-knuckling the book during that first chapter. And then the second chapter just like charges in. I don't know about you, but sometimes when I figure out that I'm reading a flashback, I'm like, oh gosh, here we go. but this flashback is well worth reading. Oh my goodness. And then after that, the book plays with time, and it plays with narrative, and it plays with a lot of things very, very interestingly. So it's not just the fact that this book is interesting from a character perspective or a plot perspective. It's also interesting in a novelistic perspective, how this story is told. There's a long sort of kind of like book within a book, a chapter that you know, think 1984, like sort of the book in a book. There is a chapter like that in this book that I thought was fascinating. It's super interesting, and it ends up being referenced again later in the book in a very cool way. So the book overall is I don't know, expertly crafted, expertly put together. I really don't have any complaints. My hatred for Anne Stanton just comes from me not understanding why she made the decisions that she made, but I don't necessarily think that she was written badly or anything like that. And again, the book is so intriguing and the book is so well done that I know I'm going to be reading it again, and I fully expect to think of these characters differently, and maybe I'll think of Anne Stanton differently too when I reread it. So this definitely gets a recommend from the Hedgehog. The Hedgehog recommends. And I'm going to do something lighthearted tomorrow, hopefully a lighthearted tag. I'm going to read something lighthearted today, and hopefully I don't know what it'll be. I'm looking at my TBR and I'm thinking, is that really going to be enough for me? I don't know. I got to read something really, really sweet and really, really easy to swallow after I got walloped by this thing. But yes, very much recommended, and I will see you all tomorrow. Thank you, BookTube.